Hey internet friends! Have you heard the war drums beating as the media rattles off endless news stories about a certain supreme leader's threats? Coming out of a certain rogue country that could perhaps rival the United States in propaganda production? I've avoided talking about North Korea on my channel, as I find it to be a massive distraction from all the other happenings taking place. But what's going down in North Korea, or the coverage of what's supposedly going down, is undeniably shaping public opinion and readying the masses for yet another war. And in the age of information, an age in which information can be and is weaponized, what I personally find more telling than the around-the-clock breaking news headlines is what the media doesn't say, the information they repress rather than promote. That's why today we're discussing what the media won't tell us about North Korea.
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen.
To understand why tensions between the United States and North Korea are seemingly high, we have to hit rewind all the way back to 1945, when Japan lost control of Korea to the Allied forces. And much like Germany, Korea was divided, with the Soviets taking the north and the southern half falling under United States control. Many point to the Korean War as laying the foundation for the turmoil, a war that took place post-World War II and pre-Vietnam. A war that allegedly began when Soviet and Chinese-supported North Korea invaded United States-supported South Korea. And when I was briefly taught about the Korean War in high school, my teacher boiled down the objective to the war stopping the spread of communism, all orchestrated under the United Nations authority. But like with most wars, the War of Divided Korea was undeniably more complicated than the spread of an intangible political theory. Much like the War on Terror is immensely more complicated than just being a war on indiscriminate violence that results in global fear. While both sides suffered numerous casualties, the estimated number of Chinese and North Koreans killed in the Korean War by 1953 was way over 1 million. And the war didn't end in a peace treaty. Instead, there was an armistice, meaning the Korean War never ended. To summarize, Korea was Japan's vassal state pre-World War II, but much like Germany when the Japanese lost in World War II, America set up shop in Japan and set its sights on Korea. If you want to draw a parallel, you can liken this agenda to the British Empire after World War I, setting its sights on Syria and Iraq. When an empire falls, the vassal states are up for grabs. So what did the Korean War accomplish? The same thing that both world wars and all preceding wars have accomplished. More power for a global government.
In the aftermath of the terrorist attack on September 11th, when President Bush went before the Congress in 2002, he defined the axis of evil, meaning Iran, Iraq, and North Korea.
States like these and their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil, arming to threaten the peace of the world.
I've made a few of these What the Media Won't Tell You videos, and by this point I'm starting to notice a pattern. The countries Bush called out in his Axis of Evil speech, accusing them of being sponsors of terrorism, are countries all rich in natural resources, and without a Rothschild central bank. Well, let's mark Iraq past tense because they were without a central bank, but then they were invaded on the false pretense that they had weapons of mass destruction, and you know the rest from there. While North Korea has long been regarded as a poor country, they certainly have no shortage of heroin, cash crops, or natural resources. An article published in June of 2017 stated that North Korea sits on top of $6 trillion in mineral resources. Recent reports suggest that the largest known rare earth deposit was discovered in North Korea. Currently, North Korea's ally and trading partner China produces more than 95% of all rare earth materials that are vital in the creation of a big variety of electronic technologies. Imagine if China completely had the market cornered, basically holding all the elements used to make modern-day technology in the technology of the future. Well, that's not the only threat that China, who is also allied with Russia and Iran, poses. They've declared war on the petrodollar, which is the unit of currency earned by a country for the export of petroleum. And since historically global transactions involve the US dollar, the petrodollar system afforded the United States, or really its bankers, global hegemony or influence over the oil industry, totally shaping America's foreign policy in the Middle East, and as some have speculated, even being a motivating factor of the war on terror. But all of that is changing because the petrodollar system is collapsing and has been for some time. According to strategic risk consultant William Engdahl, in 2014, Russia and China signed 2 mammoth 30-year contracts for Russian gas to China. The contracts specified that the exchange would be done in Chinese and Russian currency. That was the beginning of an accelerated process of de-dollarization that is underway today. Meaning, if the dollar loses its value and influence due to Russia and China using a different currency other than the petrodollar, who's going to be paying the bills for these perpetual wars? Bringing us to our final point. What is all this noise with North Korea really about?
Not yet 30 and supreme commander of all he sees, Kim Jong-un now stands on the shoulders of his father and grandfather as the leader of this reclusive nation with one of the world's biggest armies.
목표 식별 능력이 대단히 높다고 하시면서 커다란 만족을 비약적으로 강화되었다고 못내 기뻐하셨습니다.
As always, we gotta ask the question, we gotta ask ourselves, who benefits from the United States going to war with North Korea? Certainly not North Korea. The bankers who fund all sides of the war would monetarily benefit from interest made off the loans. The weapons manufacturers and dealers would benefit because war is profit. And peace doesn't exactly generate tons of demand for missiles and whatnot. Additionally, those who desire a global government and currency would benefit, especially if, let's say, a nuclear launch by a rogue state were to spur an international crackdown on Iran's nuclear weaponry, which has been a point of contention for quite a while now, as Iran is allied with both Russia and China. And while we're at it, the mainstream media would make out like a fat cat if war were to pop off, which is obvious as they're clearly on the forefront of pushing for war. Not like it matters to them where the bombs get dropped, as long as they get a clip they can replay over and over again, keeping people glued to their television screens, rallying for support of war, just like they did with the Iraq invasion, under the false pretense of Saddam having weapons of mass destruction, using fear to sway public opinion. And before I get accused of creating North Korean or Chinese or Russian propaganda, please consider the following. Obviously, North Korea has been and is threatening surrounding countries, and most recently, the United States and Guam. There are stories of North Korean concentration camps from escapees. We're constantly receiving a stream of crazy narratives about how North Korea has approved hairstyles for both men and women. And there are stories about how they found unicorns in North Korea and all of that. We're aware of what we're told, but what about what we're not told? What if everything we hear about North Korea's threats are true? But Kim Jong-un, who attended school in Switzerland and gets celebrity visits from Dennis Rodman, his total controlled opposition. The instability leaves room for the United States to invade if there were some kind of attack by North Korea on, let's say, Guam, for example. One would assume that North Korea's actions would be an act of suicide, like death by world cop. And okay, how would the wannabe global government benefit from this? Well, after plundering the natural resources of North Korea, they'd also benefit from being strategically located near what seems to be a perpetual threat, China. What global citizen would question retaliation after hearing about the crazy Supreme Leader's antics, like the alleged Sony hacking and the human rights violations? Kim Jong-un is the perfect boogeyman, whether by chance or by design. But remember, war freaking sucks. People die. The media, the government, the warlords are controlling us with fear. Because they know fear is the greatest motivator. And guess what? War is a booming business. And those who fund wars, either with weapons production or currency, have a lot to lose from peace. And that goes for the media as well. What do you think, internet friends? Is North Korea being utilized to misdirect the masses? Are they bluffing or are they serious? Are they controlled opposition or are they a true threat? You tell me. I always look forward to your comments. Thank you so much for subscribing and supporting my channel on Patreon. Bye!